everybody, and welcome back to Bees Views. I decided to start a new segment on my book club that I just started called an Effin book club. And this is episode 1. Every month we have one book that we're going to read. And when I say we, that's my other 2 book club members you see right here, and I will introduce them shortly. Every month we're going to read or listen to one book and then just give a brief discussion at the end of the month on it and speak about the book that we will be listening to or reading next month. So how did we get started? The 3 of us were doing another program, and then we were in a group, and then we just decided to keep the group and just continue doing something else. And so we decided to do the book club. So I'm going to introduce my 2 book club members. So we're going to start with Mr. Alvinus Melius, who's here, is my friend.
Hi.
Ex-co-worker, and we remain friends all this time, and which I'm really glad for. And then we have Chelsea Rosemond, who is my mentee. I like to call it that. Oh, like my little sister / ex-student. Actually, Alvinus is ex-student as well.
Yep.
And so say hi.
Hello.
Yes, so the 3 of us are reviewing the book called The Big Leap for the month of May by Gay Hendricks. So Gay Hendricks is an author, and he's actually a co-author and co-author of more than 20 books that deal with personal growth. He also had a hand in, I don't know how much of, but I think he wrote Continuum, which is a movie from 2006. He's an older white man. He's a psychologist by profession. And from what I get from his books and what I've learned about him, it seems like he have a lot of Christian beliefs, but it's not like, hey, I'm a Christian, everybody should, that kind of thing. And it seems like he has a lot of high-end clients. Based on the stories he has in his book, it seems like a lot of them are these persons you would categorize as upper class on the socioeconomic scale. So the book, The Big Leap, basically demonstrates how to eliminate the barriers to success by overcoming false fears and beliefs. Something he terms the upper limit problem. And it's the idea that we constantly mess up our successes because we're not used to it, and he gives suggestions on how to avoid it. Anybody want to jump in here? I was just going to give like a brief synopsis of the upper limit problem, a paragraph I highlighted from the book, just so people could have a better idea of the book. So anybody want to jump in right now?
That's fine. Go ahead. And then
on page 9, it says, as humans, we would enjoy a period of peace, then plunge into war. We'd create a time of economic expansion, then go into a recession or depression. Everywhere I looked, I saw evidence of the pattern. Eventually, I reined in the wild horses of my imagination and focused on the key step every researcher begins with, stating the problem to be solved and the questions to be answered. The problem: I have a limited tolerance for feeling good. When I hit my upper limit, I manufacture thoughts that make me feel bad. The problem is bigger than just my internal feelings, though. I seem to have a limited tolerance for my life going well in general. When I hit my upper limit, I do something that stops my positive forward trajectory. I get into a conflict with my ex-wife, get into a money bind, or do something else that brings me back down within the bounds of my limited tolerance. That I find he reiterates this a lot throughout the book, in that same concept throughout the book in different ways. And I find that's very helpful, because sometimes when you talk about one thing, it's good to explain it one way, but then later on you end up seeing it a different way, because many things have many facets. I think that's a good way to write a book, in my opinion. But go ahead. Anybody has any comments on that?
Yeah.
I like the way that he linked the upper limit problem to us as humans before we were in the kinds of civilizations that we are in right now. he looks at why it was more necessary to be worried about a snake bite than to be thinking about chasing pleasure or thinking about a berry that we liked. Because worrying about the snake bite might save your life, but thinking about a berry that you liked might just mean pleasure for a short while. And I like the way that he connects that experience of our ancestors to what has solidified in our minds in terms of the way we think.
Okay. First, Chelsea, you have something to say? I just wanted, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Say,
I agree with you both. It's a very, very insightful book, and I try to take on I'm trying to take on everything that was said into the book. So anytime I go through something, I actually observe that in my life. Every time I would go through something, like a period of happiness, a period of a period that I feel that I am at my best, and then it's just when I'm at the peak, there's like this downhill, and it always has to do it has something to do, sorry, with our mentality and the way that we think, and our low tolerance for happiness or success. So I agree.
when he first said it to me, I was like, we hold. I've heard that concept before. Okay, before I read the book, I heard that concept. I was like we hold us. Like, who wants to hold themselves back? You understand? Like, I mean, like how like nobody does that. So how could you say that's like a real problem? But apparently it might be just something that inside of us, or psychological, or whatever it is, that we just don't realize. And one of the things, I don't think I wrote it down, but let me mention it now before I forget. One of the things he says in there, and I don't know if one of you are at that point, we could jump on it right now, but I want to also talk about the problem. And there's a section where he says how the upper limit problem works. And I love analogies, so I really love the way that he put this together. But one of the things he always tried to link it to is the biology of it. Like, he said something in there, like, when it happens, take note of exactly what microbiological processes that happen into your body. Like, if your heart racing a little, or if you feel tingling in your
Yeah, how you
toes.
feel, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was like, and I tried to apply that later. So maybe I'll tell you all about that privately. But anyway, if you all don't have anything to say about that, we can come back to it. But I just wanted to give like a brief overview to persons on how he says the upper limit problem works. So how the upper limit problem works. He says, let me show you specifically how the upper limit problem holds us back. Each of us has an inner thermostat setting that determines how much love, success, and creativity we allow ourselves to enjoy. When we exceed our inner thermostat setting, we will often do something to sabotage ourselves, causing us to drop back into the old familiar zone where we feel secure. Unfortunately, our thermostat setting usually gets programmed in early childhood. That I thought was, anyway, before we can think for ourselves. Once programmed, our upper limit thermostat setting holds us back from enjoying all the love, financial abundance, and creativity that's rightfully ours. It keeps us in our zone of confidence, or at our best, our zone of excellence. It prevents us from living in the ultimate destination of our journey, which is the zone of genius. And we'll talk about that just now. If you make I want to touch on that for sure, because he speaks basically he speaks about that. He speaks about that from
he speaks about 4 zones. Yeah.
Yes. So if you make a spectacular leap in one area of your life, such as money, your upper limit problem quickly enshrouds you to a wet wool blanket of guilt that keeps you from enjoying your new abundance. Guilt is a way our minds have of applying a painful grip on the conduit through which our good feelings flow. And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, that is so true, that the thermostat thing, because if anybody knows how a thermostat works, it's like it's there to regulate. So once it gets above well, in this case, above what it's supposed to be, it will do what it needs to do to bring us down, and it's basically what we do. Anybody has any thoughts on that?
the childhood thing, I think, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us as adults, we don't make the link between what happened to us in childhood
Mm-hmm.
and how that affected or how that molded us into the adults that we are today. And even down to our thinking, the way that we think um, is molded very early, because when we are children, this is when we get our first exposure to the world around us, and we we come to certain conclusions based on things that happen to us in that early introduction, and our parents, our family, our society, all of these factors affect how we develop, how we eventually begin to think about things like money, wealth,
Yes.
and education, intelligence, and a lot of things around us.
Mm-hmm.
That is why in certain circles, people talk about the first 7 years of a child, um, how critical it is for a parent to be careful what the child is exposed to and that kind of stuff in the first 7 years. And there seems to be some truth to that. And when the way that he brought it out in the book was very practical, it was easy to make these kinds of links. The scenarios that he gave to explain also made it so clear, and he really had a good way of explaining these things.
Yeah, I thought so too. Chelsea?
Yeah. Agreed. But
Now,
I agree.
he mentioned the zones. So let's talk about the zones. In the book, he says our activities in the world occur in four main zones. So you have first the zone of incompetence, which is made up of all the activities we're not good at, and others could do them a lot better than we can. And surprisingly, many successful people persist in wasting time and energy doing things for which they have no talent. And I laugh. I remember exactly where I was when I was listening to this. I was walking home, I was passing by the Carmen Rennie school, and I was like, I just started burst out laughing. I was like, oh my God, that is so true. They have a lot of people that pursuing things they have no business pursuing, and they wonder why they're not happy. And then sometimes I look at these people and I'm like, in a way, who am I to tell you what you should be doing? But I look at it and it's like, you cannot be happy. Like, you better at other things. Why are you not trying to focus on that?
I feel it comes from being afraid
Mm-hmm.
or that fear.
I agree. Fear of what?
I think of the fear of stepping into maybe what I'm truly called to do, and
Yeah.
maybe just
Yeah.
being afraid that I might not be able to handle, becoming that big person, or handle that level of wealth or happiness.
Or the fear of failure. That's
Yeah,
basically
and
what.
also sorry.
Well, that's basically what you're saying. Yeah, the fear of failure. Measures.
I I think some people too do not value their time.
But you explain.
No, but seriously, I mean, if there's something that you're not very good at, and there are other persons who can do it, right? And you can get the other persons to do it, why not just let them do it and
True.
spend your time doing other things?
You know what I think? So I think as well too. Some people are in love with certain things. They like the end result or what they see, or the benefits of the thing that people do. The book we're going to suggest today, it touched on that a while ago. I don't know how far it goes into it because that's where I stopped. But it's true
Okay.
because I was watching.
So you already started reading the book for next month.
Hey, I couldn't wait for y'all. It's the 11th. Okay, I couldn't wait for y'all.
That's fine. That's fine.
But I
That's
just
fine.
started like yesterday or day before or something.
Right, that's fine. Started is started,
Yeah.
There are no
I
gray
was
areas.
watching.
Either you start or you have not started.
Have you
Go
ever
ahead.
watched Real Housewives of Atlanta? No.
That's much drama.
No.
Anyway, that's one
I
of my
think
guilty.
my wife was watching it some time ago.
That's one of my guilty pleasures. But anyway, for some reason, Netflix has it now, and they just have the first two seasons. And in the first two seasons were from like 2008 and 2009. So I went back and I was watching it over in the last week there. And one of the girls, the lady Kim, like I don't know, she lives in the white Kim, because later on there's a black Kim that's on the show. But she lives in this fantasy world, which is whatever. I don't want to comment on that. I don't care. That's a good lifestyle. But then she wanted to be a country singer, and she wasn't afraid to sing, and really she cannot really.
That's the white one wanted to be the country singer,
right? And she cannot really sing, if I'm being honest. Like she cannot really sing, and then I just realized like this lady just in love with the end result, like being on stage and jumping
that
up.
happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, like that's what you're not in love with the process that gets there, and that's what there are people that are willing to work hard, even though they like that kind of thing, like they love being on stage, but they also love the process of getting there, the process of writing the song, the process of staying in the studio for hours and getting it right. And example for they have other things, like some people, I don't know, love to, let's say, I don't know, sew, I don't know, and get pieces together, whatever. Some other people will be like, you know what, sew that fast, put 2 zips on that and let's go. Like, you know what I mean? And other people, yes, a lot of people spend a lot of time in the zone of incompetence. And it is
because they do not evaluate themselves. They're not good at evaluating themselves, probably. Because if you're good at evaluating yourself and being honest with yourself, you will realize whether you're good at something or not, whether something is quote unquote meant for you or not. Quite a few people, and some intelligent ones too, they do not spend a lot of time with themselves so that they know themselves. And that causes a lot of people to waste most of their lives doing things they should not be doing, and eventually not actually using up the potential that they have inside of them.
And as you said, that people like spending time by yourself. I'm learning now as an older, more mature adult, let me say, that spending time by yourself is actually very valuable. A lot of people see it as like a negative thing and like being lonely and stuff. But now, spending time by myself, I'm scheduling that now to do on a regular. Important. Yeah, it is very important. Okay.
I was actually reading this book a couple months ago called The Power of Focus, and he did mention something in the book saying that a lot of successful people fall through. They spend a lot of time fibbling in things that they have no business to be fibbling in. And then I think if I cannot remember.
Successful in the terms of money?
Not only money, but like he would say like stuff like paperwork and like okay, let's say for instance, if I know I'm a good salesperson, I have no business doing an accountant's job. That sort of vibe, you know? Yeah. And so I think like sometimes as well, it's almost, I remember myself as well, but I think it's sometimes just, oh God, I feel in it. I feel like that book is about me, and I feel like it's empowered. So edit that out, edit that out. That book for empowerment for me, because it's just like when I'm about to go on a stage to sing, or I know I have to sing or do something that I really know that I'm good at. It's like I will find my shoe dirty or something to distract me from the main.
So you're good at singing? I didn't know that.
You should check out my album.
No,
that is why you never heard Chelsea sing?
No.
What?
Sometimes I sang in the school.
Functions? Yeah.
I never heard her sing. I don't remember her singing.
Chelsea has a beautiful, powerful voice.
I don't remember her singing.
Yes. But this is a good transition, because what I think you're talking about. She
started singing when I was out.
Probably.
No, you were there. Yeah. To me, you were there,
really?
So. Yeah.
No, I don't recall that.
Also.
Seriously,
sorry.
I don't recall.
So, Alvinus, that better?
I don't recall for true. I don't.
But this is a good transition to the next zone of competence, because I think that's what you're talking about. It says you're competent in the activities in the zone of competence, but others can do them just as well. Successful people often discover that they expend far too much time and energy in this zone. And he goes on to give a story about the lady who was working, and then she was doing whatever, and then she always end up in somebody else's role at her job, like basically like what you were saying, Chelsea.
Some people are like that.
Yeah, zone of competence. Some people want to stay there too. I didn't really feel any type of way about that zone. I mean, you're good at it. And I think sometimes two people stay there too. Like you okay. Like even with other things too, you okay in it too. You're not incompetent, you're okay, but then you're comfortable and you're okay with it.
Yeah, they get too comfortable.
Yeah. So any comments on that one or?
But if you look at the zones, you realize as you grow, which is what you're supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll move from one zone to the other, right?
Yeah.
So at first, when you start doing something, you might be incompetent at that thing, not very good, right? And there might be others better than you. I wanted to say that earlier. I wanted to say that when we talk about the zone of incompetence and not staying there, we are not really looking at a person who is just learning something.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when you're just learning something, there's a level of incompetence at the start. But as you continue, you develop skills, you acquire more knowledge about what you're into. But that zone of incompetence is looking at more like, I think, that's how I understood it. It's looking more at persons who are not growing, essentially.
Yeah.
So they are stuck there and they're not getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I was about to come and see, actually. I was about to come and see that the issue is when you get too comfortable in places that you're not supposed to be at. I mean, if you're transitioning, if you know that you're just starting off into something and then you're taking that next step, okay, but then you cannot stay in a place that you know you cannot, that's not your best. You cannot keep on being afraid to take that next step or dive in a little deeper, you know? And yeah.
I agree. And what also, as you said that day, what I also thought about was like you could be in one zone and drop to the other out of the fear we were talking about earlier on.
Too. Yeah, true. That's true.
So the next zone is the zone of excellence. These are activities you do extremely well and you make a good living in your zone of excellence. For successful people, this zone is a seductive and even dangerous trap. I remember where I was when I did that as well. I just entered the house and I was putting on my bag. I was like, yo, it is true. Like those people that want to be successful and want to be really good, they stay in that zone, but then they don't go to the last zone, which we're going to talk about, the zone of genius. And they just feel, and it's also what's the word you use, complacency as well. But at the same time, you don't want to be incompetent. You're not going to go to something, like you're not going to go and try something that you cannot do. But the zone of excellence, when he said it's a dangerous trap, I was like, yo, because if you don't understand the difference between the two, you could get stuck in that one for true. And in the book, what's good is that he helps you answer the questions of whether you're in the zone of excellence or genius. Like he gives you a set of questions that you're going to ask yourself to see what keeps you or what will get you into your zone of genius. Any thoughts?
That's where a lot of career people are.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah. They're good enough to make a living at it. And that's enough for them.
And then it says something also that's where you spend your most comfort. And then I was thinking too, you're not really comfortable in incompetence and competence, because somewhere in the back of your mind, something will happen. In incompetence, some people know that they're not good at whatever, because when they meet other people that are better at it, and that person look at you and compare, and they're like, I know I'm better than you at this. So in the back of your mind, even though you seem like you have success in incompetent things, you will be unhappy internally because that's not what you're good at, and they have other people that could do it. I don't know for other people, but I love being better at something. I love trying to be the best at something, or one of the best of something. If I cannot do something, I will try, and then I'll be like, okay, all right, well, let me leave that alone. But now in the zone of competence, you will be okay with it, but I feel like you have some kind of unhappiness inside of you because these things end up becoming mundane and just like you're really good at it, and it's like, but it's not bringing you happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was really good. Anybody on the zone of excellence? Anything else?
Yeah, also just to agree with you all. I remember when I let me give another story.
Mm,
So I remember when I interviewed my boss. I mean, I interviewed her because I wanted to know why she thinks the way she thinks, why she do the things she does, why she operates the way she operates. So I wanted to understand, and because if you want to be successful, then you have to follow a certain set of principles. You have to basically behave like successful people. You have to think like successful people.
mm-hmm.
So I wanted to understand, and I remember she telling me that she was working a place for many years, and her salary was just right, and she could have she was very comfortable where she was, but then she said that she knew that wasn't what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. You know, many people would just settle for doing something that they're good at. They make a lot of money from it, they're successful from it, but then you know that you have a higher calling, you know that that just cannot be it. And so she took the step and just left her job.
Mm,
She just left her job, and she started afresh into what she loved doing. And right now she's, no, she is. That's the thing too. She was trying to tell me that she could have stayed where she was, but then she knew that just couldn't be it. Like she just wasn't comfortable with where she was.
I
She
think
was
what
comfortable, but not comfortable enough. She
I
knew she could have
understand.
done better.
I think
She,
all these terms like zone of genius, higher calling, I think all of this is really just the word happiness. And in this book that I'm about to suggest, it puts it in a frame, in
Oh
a mind
Lord.
frame that is so crazy. Like, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And like, it breaks it down to show like, he says something like happiness is an action. And it's like solving problems, like, but you have to know
Not a state.
which problems you want to solve, like which ones you okay with solving. Like happiness is about solving problems, and you just have to decide which problems in your life you're willing to solve constantly or something like that. But anyway, the last zone,
Um.
huh?
Oh, while we were discussing the zones and talking about success and um, all of that good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have been thinking about well, when we look at the zone, some persons might be thinking that he's only talking about money, because some persons, when they think about success, it's money that comes to their mind.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas, as you mentioned, the happiness thing, I'm thinking that some people get satisfaction from the job that they do, and that's enough for them. That's their level of success. They're
Mm-hmm.
satisfied. So they're able to solve these problems, and it makes them happy. Money is important. Money is nice to have, but money is not the only measure of success.
Yes.
Some persons find success in being able to complete a job up to a certain standard and
Mm-hmm.
getting that satisfaction from being able to solve whatever problem. For instance, there are people who their success is, for instance, human rights. There are people who human rights is their thing and
Advocate.
they become successful at it. In other words, they are very effective in that area and they
Mm-hmm.
spend their life being effective in that area. Some people are educators. They might not get rich being an educator, but as they call it, and they're very effective at it. Some people are quote unquote spiritual leaders and they might be very effective at it, right?
Yeah.
So that's success as well. Though they
Yes.
do not make a lot of money, but if you want something in that area, this is the guy or the lady to go to. You understand? So that's
Yeah.
success as well.
Yeah, and I think in the book he does distinguish between not just money. And I think I read something a while ago where he says it's not just money, but some other things. I forget.
Yeah.
But it brings us to the zone of genius. And it says, liberating and expressing your natural genius is your ultimate path to success and life satisfaction. The zone of genius is the set of activities you are uniquely suited to do. They draw upon your special gifts and strengths. Your zone of genius beckons you with increasingly strong calls as you go through your life. By the age of 40, many of us have tuned out the call of genius and are getting loud. Repeated alarms hidden in the form of depression, illness, injuries, and relationship conflict. These alarms are reminding us to spend more time feeding our natural genius and letting it do its magic in the world. In this book, I will show you how to heed this call and move gently and gracefully into your zone of genius. Yeah, so he goes into that there. When he said the accidents thing, I'm like, how people attracting accidents? Seriously? But he explained something later, and I was like, okay, whatever. And anyway, and
yeah, I
think
wondered about
touch on
that
it
too.
a lot, but go ahead.
Yeah, I wondered about the accidents thing as well when he said that. I was like,
And I think he gave an example, but I still wasn't convinced with the example he gave.
I'm not sure about the accidents thing.
Mm-hmm.
It puts you in a position where you believe that you're attracting certain things to yourself, so you're attracting accidents. All right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what. Mm-hmm.
On some level, there is some truth to that. On some level, but I'm not sure whether that could be like a universal thing, or you think that and you just apply that, so whatever is coming towards you. And I don't think that's what he was saying though, that whatever accidents you get involved in, that you attracted it to yourselves. I don't think that's what he's saying. But I think he's saying some of the things we get involved in may be a result of that kind of attraction. That's how I rationalized it.
Yeah. I don't know what he said, but go ahead, Josie. Sorry.
When he said that, I thought of, I put myself I looked at myself, and I thought of it like that. It's always like when you reach that peak, being that you're not familiar with that level of happiness or excellence. Begin, like, your mind begins to look for all little things that, remember, you are what you think, and if you keep on thinking negative things, that is what you're going to attract. Now, I think that when he said accidents, he was maybe referring to something negative. It doesn't necessarily have to be an accident, but it's
an example.
Yeah, I agree. But I think he was maybe thinking of well, no, maybe he was just saying negative stuff, because when you're at that peak, and you begin to go through that downward spiral, you start to think of all sorts of negative stuff. You cannot focus I don't know. You
know what? I don't know if he said that or that just coming to me now because I'm a genius. But like he said, he said, I think, like, being unfocused because you do now whatever you lack a lot of like your attention to detail and your attention span just thrown off. So you kind of get into minor accidents, like that's unnecessary. I could rationalize it that way. Whatever. But yeah, that's the 4 zones, and we're trying to live more in the zone of genius. And I think I am. Before I read this book, I was already transitioning there, and I already knew. I didn't know how to term it. I didn't know that term, but I'm not saying it's an official term, but I just knew, like, living happy. And I think all of us should have heard this already, where it says, like, when you work, you need to do something that doesn't seem like work. Like, you could have a job that doesn't seem like you actually working. So
the job that you enjoy.
Right. So I've been trying to move towards that anyway. But I'm glad it's actually. What'd you say?
I think we've all been trying to move towards that.
When you say we, you mean the 3 of us, or you mean people in general?
The 3 of us.
I'm about to say, some people living in that zone and confidence. So, yeah. I think overall for the book, it actually solidified the path that I'm on. It solidified for me that I'm doing the right thing. I think
the interesting thing is, when you look at when you look throughout our history and you identify the persons who have been massively successful,
Mm-hmm.
and you compare their experience to what is being discussed there, like in terms of the zone of genius,
Mm-hmm.
you can clearly see that these persons were living in that zone. Look at, for instance, Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
right? Michael Jackson excelled so much as a pop star, and when you look at him preparing for a show, you look at the attention to detail, you look at how he's concerned about every little thing about the show, and he's so passionate about every little thing about the show. It tells you that this guy was not just an ordinary person in terms of a person who was not in the zone of genius. And you look at other persons as well. You look at the major businessmen who have made billions of dollars, and they were doing what they were passionate about, and going, and it wasn't work to them. Look at Steve Wozniak, the other founder, the other Steve from Apple,
Oh,
the
okay.
other founder, right?
Mm.
He may not have been as popular as Steve Jobs, but this guy was passionate about what he was doing in terms of working on these boards and that kind of stuff, and coming up with all of these genius ideas as to how the board should be done, and then eventually getting these things small and getting them to work the way they were working and that kind of stuff. These guys were doing things that they enjoyed, and they had become extremely good at it, right? And there are many other people, and when you listen to them talk, when you watch them work, you see that it's a form of play for them, in essence. They get a
Yeah.
lot of pleasure from what they're doing, and they don't see it as work, so they could stay there and be in it for 24 hours, right? Which is detrimental as well, but it would not necessarily bother them. They wouldn't feel like, boy, I just there and the boss there watching me. They don't really feel like that. They don't feel like and there's also a sense of um, self motivation or self propulsion, where they are pushing themselves to do better and better and better and better. They are the ones driving themselves and not somebody else. And there's something very fascinating about that. When you look at most people who work, the boss is the one driving them with a whip.
Yeah.
And if the boss is not there, for a lot of these people, very little work gets done.
Yeah.
Okay? Unless the boss says, I want this done by the time I get back.
Right.
Right? Some people, that's how they operate. And most persons who are working, that's how they operate. And
So
it's kind of sad, because it means a lot of human potential is just being lost.
So are you saying prostitutes should not have pimps? Is that what I'm hearing from what you're saying here?
Oh my God. My God.
I don't know why that's all I'm thinking about while you tell me. Why you saying that? It's like, yeah.
I have a question, when you're done.
Yeah, but here's a strange answer. The pimp is good at what he's doing, and the prostitute is good at what he or she is doing.
But is she not
So
happy?
the pimp may not be able to step into the prostitute's shoes, and the prostitute may not be able to step into the pimp's shoes. That's a strange answer, but I don't think she should have a pimp. I don't think a prostitute should have a pimp. But anyway.
Don't listen to me. But Chelsea has something to say. I have something else to say, something more serious.
Yeah, I know.
But
I
go
know
ahead, Chelsea, and I'll tell you.
Can your zone of genius easily become your zone of excellence? Can it fall? Can you be operating your level of genius so long that it becomes your zone of excellence?
No, and that is bringing me to my point. Let me tell you why.
Why not?
I was about to say, how you know you're living in your zone of genius or someone else is living in a zone of genius? They're an innovator. They create changes in that realm. So just like what you said about the Steve guy, you said something about how he was creating things and whatever.
Steve Wozniak, yeah.
Right. So some people, when they're in the zone of excellence, once something that's already created, they could master it, but they could never innovate. They could never see the changes that need to be made or see how this could be done in the future. So as long as there's room for creativity, to answer your question, as long as there's room for creativity and there's room to grow in that way, you will always be satisfied with living in your zone of genius, because there's always something to do or something new to look forward to that not other people would see.
Okay, I'll start singing.
It's true.
But that's the 4 zones. Anything else on the 4 zones?
Not right now.
I just have 2 more. Well, my last thing I'll touch on, but the one before the last thing, something he touched on kind of a lot was something called Einstein time.
Oh boy, that
was another thing. I was like, yo, like, my husband, they're making fun of me for it. Huh?
When the guy made that link, I thought that was genius.
I was like, they're trying to do my Einstein time. One time it worked for me. I go lie. Like, I was like, and you know what? Go ahead.
No, as somebody for a science background, right? And
what
thinking
background?
of the science.
Science, okay.
Yeah, thinking of like the theory of relativity and the theory of relativity in regards to time, and then taking that and putting that in terms of our general perception of time. That's, to me, that was fascinating to me, and to make time, because our idea, what he was saying essentially was that our idea of time is very simple in terms of our everyday life. But time is not so simple. Time is complex.
Yes.
Right? And he was saying that we go around as if we are victims of time. When we are actually creators of time. And that was a very interesting concept for me.
Yeah.
Because people go around saying they don't have time, but when something is important, they are able to create or make time for it.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
And that's the point. That's the point he was really. That's the point he was really bringing up. The fact that we can create time when we need it.
Yes. So let me just read a little excerpt of what he said Einstein time is. He says, when we make the shift to Einstein time, you experience a major surge in your productivity, creativity, and enjoyment. The shift takes place the moment you embrace one profoundly simple truth. You're where time comes from. Then he goes on to say, embrace and embody this truth, and you can experience a quantum jump in productivity and free time. It works so well, it may seem like magic, but it's based on solid science inspired by Einstein's physics. Once you understand that you're where time comes from, you have the power to make as much of it as you want. You're the boss. I know that might sound strange, but I promise you that this is the way time actually works. Before I started teaching this concept to others, I learned it myself the hard way. And you know, when I knew what he was talking about, because you know, like when you're getting ready for work, like there are times when you're getting ready and like when you're rushing, like it's like shit, I late. But there have times like when you have, so like you wake up at 6:30, 6 o'clock trying to leave for 7:30, and you always leave like 7:45 or whatever, because you're there rushing. But then there are times I would wake up at 7 o'clock and be done and ready by 7:30, because I was like, all right, I late already. So let me just take my time. And it's like, I take my time and I'm like, I ready like on time. So I feel like that's kind of like the same thing he's talking about. And I tried my little Einstein time once a day after I read the book, and it kind of worked, but it's something you really need to apply. Yeah? It's not going to happen right away. You have to believe in it. You have to, you know, and something I do, I'm a planner. So I like to organize my time. And I think a lot of it, I was telling my husband the other day, I think a lot of it has to do with, I just like to get things out of my head, because I have so many lists of things I need to do. I just like to write it down. So at least I know it's one place, even though sometimes I just forget where I write it. I just like to get it out of my head, and it's one place. But then I try to structure it, and I realize like I never on time, never. I always say, okay, I give myself more than enough time to do a certain thing, and I still never get it done in the time that I want. So I don't know whether I'm going to fit in with my personality, but I'm going to try. Yeah, so that was the Einstein time, and I find it should be a whole other book. I don't know, but maybe it was too chapters or something, which was okay. But
It
I
will be
feel
a
like
time
I maybe need to
management
go
kind of
back
thing.
and listen to it. So that's it basically for the review of the book. I have one thing that at the end that really made me smile. I will tell you after, but anybody else has anything?
The takeaways I had for the book, we've already discussed both of them. The
Okay.
Einstein time was one of them. The fact, well, the idea that time is relative. And one of the other ones was the fact that when you allow your, well, upper limit problems to limit you, it tends to manifest in your body, and you could end
Yeah,
up sick as a result of that limit because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
agreed.
And very often, when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, your brain knows that. Um, and it can lead to depression. It can lead to a sense of unhappiness generally, a sense of um, dissatisfaction, where
Mhm.
you're doing stuff, you spend all your time in it, and you're not satisfied with what you're doing. Even if you may be competent, you may be doing it good enough to be making a living, but you're not passionate about it, and that can get you sick,
Mhm.
physically sick, and that really struck me when he discussed that. That really struck me.
You
And
know
you
what
said,
also I loved? Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Chelsea.
Was when he spoke about the upper limits in relationships, right? I mean, I'm not going to, because just I'm not going to say I'm in a relationship right now, but I put it to work. I put it to
Yeah,
work,
you
and
are,
that
you
is
are.
so
But,
true. You're good. You're happy. You both enjoying your time, and there's always like, and the worst thing is that, to me, like I believe like the worst thing would be is if one person in that relationship understands the upper limit problem,
That's one of the worst things I could
and
have.
the other person does not
yeah,
know or
yeah,
cannot under or is
or
not,
understand
or
it
is not even on that
and
level to
fathom.
understand
Yeah.
it. And then now you have someone who's trying to be happy, and then now you have this one motherfucker, sorry, this one person, apologies, sir, this one
Yeah, I'm
person,
fine.
What
I'm
about
fine.
me?
You heard the name of the book? Of the
and
book
then
club?
and then you, then you have your partner who's not even able to wrap his mind or even understand what is the upper limit problem and how to break past it or how to overcome the upper limit problem. And I love when he spoke about that in relationships as well. Imagine having a relationship where no quarreling, no fighting, no fussing, just peace. Just, I mean, it might sound boring, but he said in the book it's not boring. So I ready to see what it's
No, no, no.
like.
I say I try not fight or whatever, but solving issues is a good thing. But I see what you're saying about the stretch. Just recently, I think it was today or last night, it just came to my mind. Like a lot of the times why some relationships don't work out too is like both of you all say, okay, we had a fight, we come to terms, all right, we're going to try and be better to each other. But sometimes what end up happening is that one person really focusing on trying to be good and be better, and the other person is like, okay, like it's not a priority to them to be better, and they're not realizing that that is also a problem, because if one person growing, or getting better or trying to work on something, the problem will always persist because you're not trying to change. There was something you were saying, Melius. I forget what I said. What were you talking about before that?
If you're focused on survival, right? If your main focus is on survival, certain things become less important because you only trying to survive. Whereas if you focus on succeeding,
Mm-hmm.
then your perspective changes
It is true.
because you focus on succeeding. But if you focus on you just want to stay alive,
Yeah.
and our race for like millennia, I would say, not just the 400 years, but for a long time, our race has been focused on surviving.
True.
And even today, our race is still focused on surviving. Look at the shit that's going on in the US.
Sometimes you don't even have the time to do nothing else. And I was explaining that the other day, like you don't even have the time
And then,
to do the things you want to do. You just have to do what you need to do. You have to eat, you have to sleep, You need to go to work, make money to do those things, and
Yeah,
just to maintain yourself to go.
and look at, and in these islands we're in,
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
post-colonial islands,
Yeah.
we're still focused on surviving most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most persons
True.
are still focused on surviving.
But
They're not
and
thinking
sometimes
about,
it's
I
not
want
our
to build
fault too, eh?
success.
Because of the way things are set up, and when
Yeah,
monies are not invested in the places where that it needs to for us to build the foundation we need or create the opportunities we need in the Caribbean. But that's another story.
the and to a large extent, the infrastructure
That's
to
what I'm saying.
overcome the infrastructural limitations,
Yes.
you have to put in that extra something. You have to get it from somewhere, to succeed. And
Yeah.
sometimes a lot of people is a lucky brick. Yes,
Yeah.
you work
True.
hard, but a lot
Yeah.
of people, they get a lucky brick because they've been working hard. They get
True.
exposed to a lucky brick
Yeah.
and they become successful. But it is not something that happens as often as it should.
True. So moving on to the last part, let me just read something that for me stood out a lot and it made me smile, and I'll just comment on it. At the end of just before the appendix, the last chapter, I think he says, these moments are the springboards of our big leap. It may not happen in our first moment or our 101st, but if we practice with diligence and zeal, one magic day we will look up and realize we have created our beautiful life in our zone of genius. On that day, we will look around us and see other friendly faces in their zone of genius. We'll look at each other and say, welcome, friend. On that day, we'll know that heaven and earth are truly one. And like that made me smile. I know where I was at again when I heard that. That made me smile because it's like, I feel like most of my life struggle is trying to find like minded people. And when he said the thing about welcome friend, like, and you've seen other people in the zone of genius, like, that's all I want. I just want people around me to be happy and all of us be happy together and like just be understanding of each other, even though we're different. Everywhere I turn, my main issue is what people will call quote unquote haters. And that these are people, I'm not talking about people that disagree with me. I'm not talking about people that maybe don't like certain things that I do. Like if I trigger you, then okay. But I'm talking about people that I do not trigger, like meaning by any physical means, like I said something or did something. Talking about people that just want to hate, and sometimes I just feel like that hate is much stronger. I could understand somebody and respect somebody that disagrees with me because of something I say, and then we just move on. But it's like everywhere I turn is this, and I just it gets very frustrating. Now the other thing is to retreat and be by yourself, but not everybody loves that. We are social beings, and but that's something I've learned to do, and I refuse now to interact with people that are not like-minded as I am, because when I've done that and I've tried to make friendships with people like that, it just doesn't end up well, because just like what you said, Chelsea, one person would be thinking to work on their relationship, work on themselves and on their growth, and the other person doesn't really care about that. It will always be chaotic. And to the person who is working on their growth and stuff like that, it's more traumatic, I think.
Um, um, I wanted to say one thing about
Yeah,
what
I
you're
good.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that one has to, in life, one has to develop the understanding that everybody is on their own path. Everybody is at their own stage on their own path. Some of us are further along than others.
True.
And even when we come across persons who are not where we are, we should still have, this is not a matter of just disconnecting necessarily from them, but we should know how to interact with them to give them an opportunity to grow.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure if you
agree.
understand what I'm saying.
No, I
Yeah, so we
totally
should figure
agree.
out how to interact with people to give them an opportunity to grow, even if we think that we have passed that level.
True.
We should be able to interact with them and give them that opportunity to grow. So it will be up to them whether to take it or not. But we should provide that opportunity as a more mature, quote unquote.
I agree.
individual.
I
But
agree. But at
you
the
cannot
same
really,
time, go ahead, Chelsea. I
you
think you're
cannot,
about to say
because
what I'm saying.
you can't really force people to grow or to see things a different way.
I don't think he's
As
saying
much as I
force
would,
I'm not saying to force them. I'm saying provide the opportunity.
well, yeah, but sorry. Well, that's the wrong word I used for it.
Yeah.
without criticism. We should say that too, without
Yeah.
criticizing, because people like, oh
Provide the
yeah, you.
opportunity.
Mhm. As much as you provide the opportunity, there are some people that you just have to disconnect from. If you really want to operate in your zone of genius, there are some people who you cannot take with you, who you cannot. Just sometimes no interaction is the best interaction, basically.
Um, I'm
As
not
much
always
as
in
you would want
agreement
to
with that
provide.
because, for instance,
Ugh,
sometimes you at work with people and you have to work with the people because that's your workplace. The person might be in the same department with you. You have to interact with them. So there's no way you could cut them off. You understand? So what are you
on
going
a
to do?
personal level, that is.
On a personal level, you choose who your friends are. You choose who you're lining with. You choose these kinds of things. On a personal
That's his
level, of
family,
course,
yeah.
you're going to be very selective about the people you spend your time with on a personal level. But I'm saying that you're going to meet people that you quote unquote cannot connect with at work. You're going to meet people who are at a certain level at work and interact a certain way. And I'm saying that you have to be mature enough to be aware that everybody's not at the same thing and know how to handle your interactions with these people.
You probably, and
That's
you
what I'm saying.
probably is like that term that you love from afar.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you
whatever
protect
it
your
is,
energy at the same time, and then
whatever
you.
it is, yeah,
I agree. Okay,
you have a
so
lot of,
that's
you have
it
a lot of
for
energy.
the Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Thank you, Melius, for suggesting that. I thought it was a really good suggestion, and I really enjoyed the book. I highlighted a lot of things in there that I'll be going back to. So go ahead and tell us why, by the way, you suggested the book.
Okay, I found out about this book from an old woman, okay, an elderly woman, and I don't know her, but she had a video on YouTube. The lady is, I think she was in her 80s, early 80s,
Uh-huh.
or is it early 70s, and she started bodybuilding at that age.
Oh shit. Oh wait, that's a black lady. I've seen pictures of that
No,
lady.
not a black lady,
Okay.
a white lady. What
Okay.
happened? Her daughter is a personal trainer,
Okay.
and the mother was overweight, no energy, blah blah blah, that kind of
All
stuff.
right.
And then the daughter, from looking at the mother, looking at her disposition, seeing that she was depressed about that always bothered her. She didn't want to be in photographs and all that kind of stuff. She decided that she would train her mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so she started training her. But the lady actually required her mother to read that book,
Oh wow.
Big Leap. Yeah, she makes her clients read it
That's
because
good.
she does a lot of body transformations with her clients.
Okay.
And the mother went from being overweight at an elderly age to actually being a bodybuilder at an elderly age. And she started at an elderly age. And she didn't just tone, she actually built muscle at an elderly age, which most
Wow.
people tell you is not possible,
Possible, yeah.
right?
Gives me hope.
After watching the video, towards the end of the video, I believe, the daughter referenced the book and they were saying that you should read that book. And I was like, what's that book about? I wanted to know what it was about.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to read about the author. I went to read about the book. And just about that time, we were discussing, we were doing the other program, it was ending.
Uh-huh.
And then I figure when we started talking about the book stuff, I figured that might be a good book for us to read because it could take us from here to,
Oh
to
yeah.
the next
Oh yeah, I
level.
like that.
It help us
Mm-hmm.
get to the next level, yeah.
Well,
So that's why I suggested it.
I think this book I'm going to suggest will take us to another level, which is necessary. Maybe a parallel
Yeah.
level. I don't know.
Okay.
So for June, it's my turn to suggest a book. And actually, this book came up when you subscribe to the thing that we're subscribed to. Scrib. For those that don't know, it's scribd.com. When you subscribe to it, it's one of the things they show. And I don't know how, as I've I guess, reading that book, and I've read a few others or listened to a few others since we started. And this one came up. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I've read that book.
No! Why? Why then me and Chelsea going to read it?
What read? You could
Well,
read
we
it
all could
again.
read it. Yeah,
Listen
I've
to
read
it.
it. Yeah.
Yo, I
Yeah.
feel like I in chapter 2, maybe chapter 4. And this is funny. First of all, that book is funny as hell. First of all, I laugh
it
it.
is. Yeah.
I on bank lines and walking home and they're laughing, like looking like a crazy person. But
What's new
yeah.
for you?
Huh?
Anyway, nothing.
But yeah, that book is I think what's to come, if that is already just the beginning, what's to come is really good. So we're going to review that at the end of June.
I can't say anything at this point.
No, please do not, because I already even say too much, I find.
Yeah.
And Chelsea, you need to be looking for a book for us.
One already.
Oh wow!
For
You know what
July.
I was going to suggest is, and maybe I'll suggest it my next time around, is The
Are
Life
you
of.
trying to suggest 2 books?
No, I said the next time around. My next time.
That's all lit down September, Eagle.
It doesn't matter. The narrative of Frederick Douglass is what I was going to suggest for us. And it's so funny that I'm reading this Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck after, because really that's who Frederick Douglass. If you listen to his story, that is who he is. Well, not who he. Well, I don't say who he is, but at some point he got to the point of just giving and not giving a fuck doesn't mean don't caring about nothing, and the book says that. It's just a certain place that you're at mentally. And
Anyway,
I'm enjoying it so far. So I'm going to hurry up, listen. I have like a few hours to go again. I should knock that out by the end of the week, next week. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. That's the end of our review of The Big Leap. I hope if you choose to read the book, I hope you do enjoy it. It really is a good book, and a good book to have on your
good read.
and to keep, and to even pass on to other people. It's one of those books that I feel like it could really, if persons really change and really use that book as a blueprint to change, it could really affect the world in general. That's my opinion. But thank you again for tuning in. I hope you stayed the whole time. And remember, keep your intentions pure. Bye.
Bye.